They were considered essential workers during the pandemic, but today they would need to work twice as many hours a week just to cover basic living expenses. We're talking about fast food workers and how here in Charlotte, they're making well below the livable wage.
Our Queen City News Chief Business Correspondent Taylor Young is joining us now.
And Taylor, wages in the fast food industry aren't keeping up with the cost of living.
Yeah, not the cost of living, and I think even more eye-opening, the cost of the food that they're actually serving to customers. So in a recent study, it found that fast food workers would have to work twice as many hours as your average earner just to be able to afford your typical fast food meal. In this study conducted by Charlotte-based Lending Tree, it really dives into this. So it found that even in fast food, employees worked 40 hours a week for 52 weeks a year. They would need to be able to cover their basic expense. They would not be able to cover their basic expenses in any of the 50 largest metros. That, of course, includes Charlotte. According to the report, fast food workers in Charlotte make an annual wage of $29,600. The livable wage, however, here in Charlotte is just shy of $53,000. So they are about $22,000 short of that. This puts Charlotte in the top 4 spot for having the largest livable wage shortfall for fast food workers. We are behind Atlanta, Nashville, and Dallas. I do think it's interesting that the top 4 states and cities are all in the South.
Well, so a lot of people would say, like, hey, these jobs aren't necessarily meant to make people rich, but this really, is that a surprise?
You know, I do think it's safe to say that fast food was kind of once seen as this maybe side gig or starter job for teens or students, high school students. But the reality is it's estimated that nearly 4 million Americans work in the fast food industry. And while it was once heavily reliant on those kind of teenage workers, it's really becoming multi-generational. So we're having teens, we're having adults, we're now even seeing a wave of retirees that are kind of looking at their finances, they're on a fixed income, realizing, okay, I might need to go back to work to be able to afford life. So no, I don't think anyone in this industry is looking at this as a way to get rich, but financial analysts do find it really troubling that they can't even work these jobs upwards of 40 hours a week and be able to afford life.
We've covered headlines over the last couple of years, Taylor, even here at Queen City News, that fast food retail chains, they've increased wages. Is this not helping?
Well, that was kind of looking back, that was a really big deal at the time. I remember in 2021, I went live outside of the McDonald's in Belmont, North Carolina. They were advertising, paying certain employees, we're talking managers here, upwards of $20 an hour. And that was really, we also saw a lot of other kind of fast food restaurant chains also doing that. But I think what kind of makes that change in Charlotte and the Charlotte area a little different than others is that this really followed a lot of pressure by workers asking and demanding for those wage increases. So there were strikes, there were rallies, there was picketing. And also on top of that, we also saw massive worker shortages. So I think that was also the restaurant chains kind of looking, okay, how can we get more workers in here? Let's increase their pay a little bit.
So do we expect to see any other wave of increases anytime soon, Taylor?
Well, I think when we see studies like this come out, all it does is really fuel the demand for workers to ask for more. But I will say when and if that happens really kind of depends on a state-to-state basis. So we know in California, there's a fast food council that's discussing raising minimum wage for fast workers right now. It'd be about $20.17. However, North Carolina does not have that council. Minimum wage in North Carolina is still $7.25, so well below that. I think if there were to be an increase in North Carolina, I think again it would follow mass pressure, maybe more picketing or rallies of workers demanding it, or a potential second round of worker shortages. But yeah, this is something that financial analysts, when this report came out, they do find it really troubling. They think, hey, if you're a worker, no matter what industry you work in, if you're putting in 40 hours a week, you should at least be able to afford food, housing, kind of all those necessities in life.
All right, Taylor, thank you so much.